My mother-in-law moved into our home and tried to run my marriage. I should have known the moment she walked through our front door with 3 suitcases and a smile that could cut glass. My marriage was about to become a battlefield. My name is Brielle, and for the past 8 months, I've been living in what feels like a psychological prison disguised as my own home. What started as a temporary arrangement to help my mother-in-law during a difficult transition became the most suffocating, manipulative nightmare I never saw coming. And if you think you know how this story ends, trust me. You have no idea what I had to do to save my marriage from the woman who gave birth to my husband. It all began on a rainy Tuesday evening in March. My husband Derek came home from work with that peculiar expression he wore whenever his mother had called. A mixture of guilt, exhaustion, and barely concealed panic. I was in the kitchen, stirring a pot of marinara sauce and humming along to the radio, completely oblivious to the storm that was about to tear through our peaceful 2-bedroom home in suburban Milwaukee. "Bree, we need to talk," Derek said, loosening his tie and avoiding eye contact in that way that immediately made my stomach drop. "What's wrong?" I asked, turning down the heat under the sauce. "Did something happen at work?" "It's my mom." Those 3 words. In 8 years of marriage, those 3 words had preceded every major disruption in our lives. "She called me today. She's having some financial difficulties." Now, let me paint you a picture of Constance Wellington Hayes. Yes, she hyphenated her maiden name when she married Derek's father, because apparently one name wasn't sufficient to contain her sense of self-importance. At 62, Constance was a woman who had spent her entire adult life believing the world owed her something extraordinary. She had been married 4 times, each divorce resulting in a smaller settlement than the last, until she'd finally burned through most of her resources trying to maintain a lifestyle she could no longer afford. She stood 5'6" in her signature 3-inch heels, with artificially blonde hair that she spent more money maintaining than Derek and I spent on groceries in a month. Her idea of casual wear was designer jeans that cost more than our monthly car payment, and she had never, not once in the time I'd known her, admitted to being wrong about anything. "What kind of difficulties?" I asked, though something in Derek's tone already told me I wasn't going to like the answer. "She might lose the condo. The HOA fees went up, and with the divorce settlement from husband number 4 finally running dry." Derek trailed off, running his hands through his dark hair. "She asked if she could stay with us. Just temporarily. Just until she gets back on her feet." The wooden spoon in my hand suddenly felt very heavy. "Stay with us. Here. For how long?" She said maybe a month. 2 months at most. I should have said no right then. I should have suggested a dozen alternatives. Extended stay hotels, her sister in Phoenix, a nice apartment within her actual budget. Instead, I looked at my husband's face, saw the genuine concern there, and made the decision that would nearly destroy everything we'd built together. "Okay," I said. "But we need to set some boundaries. Clear expectations about." "She's already on her way," Derek interrupted, wincing apologetically. "Her flight lands at 9:30. That night, as I hurriedly made up the couch with our best sheets and cleared space in our tiny guest closet, I told myself it would be fine. 2 months. I could handle 2 months of anyone. I'd survived worse things. College roommates who never did dishes, a boss who micromanaged my bathroom breaks, even Derek's brief phase of trying to become a craft beer enthusiast that left our kitchen smelling like a brewery for 6 months. But I had never faced anything quite like Constance Wellington Hayes in full invasion mode. She arrived with more luggage than a person should legally be allowed to transport, including a massive makeup case that she insisted had to be stored in our master bathroom because the guest powder room didn't have adequate lighting. Within the first hour, she had rearranged our living room furniture to improve the feng shui, criticized the thread count of the sheets I'd put on the couch, and asked Derek why he was allowing me to serve store-bought marinara sauce instead of making it from scratch like a proper wife should. "It's just more authentic when it's homemade, don't you think?" she said, her voice dripping with a kind of artificial sweetness that immediately made my teeth ache. I taught Derek to appreciate the finer things. I'm surprised he hasn't mentioned it. Derek, bless his conflict-avoidant heart, just mumbled something about how he liked my cooking just fine and quickly changed the subject to her flight. But I saw the seed being planted. The tiny doubt that maybe, just maybe, his mother was right about something. The first week was manageable. Annoying, certainly. She had opinions about everything from the temperature of our house to the brand of coffee we bought to the way I folded Derek's work shirts. But I could handle opinions. I'd been handling Constance's opinions for 8 years, usually in small, holiday-sized doses that I could recover from with a few glasses of wine and some therapeutic venting to my sister. But by the second week, her opinions had evolved into actions. I came home from work one evening to find that she had completely reorganized our kitchen. Every spice, every utensil, every appliance had been moved to what she deemed a more efficient location. The coffee maker, which I had trained myself to find in its sleepy pre-dawn stupor, was now on the opposite counter. My favorite wooden spoons were in a drawer I never used. The spice rack I had painstakingly alphabetized was now organized by what she called frequency of use in proper cooking. "I hope you don't mind," she said, emerging from the pantry with my arms full of items she had deemed expired or unnecessary. I couldn't stand seeing such a lovely kitchen being so poorly utilized. "Derek told me you're not much of a cook, so I thought I'd help you learn some organization skills." Derek had said what? "I never said that," Derek protested weakly when I confronted him later that night, but his denial lacked conviction. "I might have mentioned that you're more of a practical cook. Like you focus on nutrition and convenience rather than, presentation. So you told your mother I can't cook?" "That's not what I said." But the damage was done. Not just to my feelings but to something more fundamental. For the first time in our marriage, I felt like Derek and I weren't on the same team. Instead, it felt like he was somewhere in the middle, trying to keep both his mother and his wife happy, and failing miserably at both. By week 3, Constance had established herself as the household manager. She was doing our grocery shopping, returning with expensive cuts of meat and organic vegetables that tripled our food budget. She was doing Derek's laundry, clucking disapprovingly at my technique, and insisting that his dress shirts needed to be hand-washed and ironed in a way that apparently only she knew how to do properly. "I just want to take care of my son," she would say whenever I tried to protest. "He works so hard and he deserves to be pampered a little. Don't you want him to be happy?" The question was a masterpiece of manipulation. Of course I wanted Derek to be happy. But somehow, in Constance's world, Derek's happiness was dependent on my inadequacy. Every meal she cooked was accompanied by subtle commentary about nutrition and presentation. Every household task she took over came with gentle suggestions about how I might do it better next time. Every conversation about Derek's day at work included pointed observations about how stressed he seemed and how much he needed to be properly cared for at home. And Derek, God help him, was eating it up. "My mom made that casserole you like," he would say at dinner, referring to a dish Constance had prepared after asking him what his comfort foods were. "She remembered from when I was a kid. She ironed my shirts the way I like them," he would mention while getting dressed. "The way you do them is fine, but she does that thing with the collar that makes them look really crisp. My mom thinks we should start doing meal prep on Sundays," he would suggest. "She says it would save us time during the week and help us eat healthier." Each comment was small, seemingly innocent. But they accumulated like tiny cuts, until I began to feel like a guest in my own home, and not a particularly welcome one. The breaking point came in week 4. On what I now refer to as the Great Bedroom Incident. I had been working late, trying to finish a project that had been derailed by a difficult client who kept changing their requirements. It was past 9 when I finally got home, exhausted and looking forward to nothing more than a hot shower and collapsing into bed next to my husband. Instead, I found Constance in our bedroom, making the bed with different sheets. "Oh, good, you're home," she said cheerfully, as if finding your mother-in-law redecorating your most private space was perfectly normal. "I picked up these lovely sheets at that boutique downtown. Egyptian cotton 800 thread count. Derek mentioned that you two had been having some trouble sleeping, and I thought better bedding might help." I stood in the doorway, my work bag still in my hand, trying to process what I was seeing. Our comfortable, familiar blue sheets, the ones Derek and I had picked out together for our first apartment, the ones that had moved with us through 3 different homes, were piled in a laundry basket in the corner. In their place were crisp white sheets that looked like they belonged in a luxury hotel. "We haven't been having trouble sleeping," I said slowly. "And I didn't know you had a key to our bedroom." "Derek gave me his spare house key so I could run errands," she said, smoothing the duvet with practiced efficiency. "And he did mention that you toss and turn a lot at night. I thought perhaps the sheets were too rough for your skin. Sensitive skin runs in Derek's family, you know." His father had the same issue. Where was Derek? As if summoned by my growing panic, he appeared in the doorway behind me. "Hey babe," he said, kissing my cheek absently. "Mom got us new sheets. Aren't they nice? They feel amazing." "Derek," I said, my voice carefully controlled, "can I speak with you privately?" "Of course," Constance said before Derek could answer. "I'll just finish tidying up in here and then I'll give you two some space. Derek, don't forget you promised to look at my laptop tonight. I think it has another virus." 20 minutes later, Derek and I were standing in our backyard, having what felt like our first private conversation in a month. "Your mother was in our bedroom," I said. "She changed our sheets without asking and said you told her we were having sleeping problems." "I might have mentioned that you've been restless lately," Derek said defensively. "You have been, Bree. You've been tossing and turning every night since she got here." "I've been tossing and turning because I'm stressed. Because your mother is taking over our entire life. She's just trying to help. She's trying to replace me." Derek stared at me like I had grown a second head. "Replace you? Bree, that's ridiculous. She's my mother." "Exactly. She's your mother, not your wife. But lately she's doing all the things that wives do. She's cooking your meals, doing your laundry, organizing your schedule, buying sheets for our bed. What exactly is left for me to do in this marriage?" "You're being paranoid." That word, paranoid, hung between us like a slap. It was the same word Derek's father had used to describe his second wife when she complained about Constance's interference in their marriage. It was the same word Derek's brother had used when his girlfriend finally gave up and moved out after 6 months of Constance's helpful suggestions. "I'm not paranoid," I said quietly. "I'm being erased." That night, I lay awake on the new Egyptian cotton sheets that felt cold and unfamiliar against my skin, listening to Derek's peaceful breathing and wondering how we had gotten to this point. When had my husband become someone who would choose his mother's comfort over his wife's feelings? When had I become the unreasonable one for wanting to maintain some boundaries in my own home? Week 5 brought new horrors. Constance started answering our home phone and taking messages for Derek, screening his calls with the efficiency of a personal secretary. She began making social plans for the family, accepting invitations to dinner parties and barbecues without consulting me, then presenting them as fait accompli when Derek came home from work. "The Johnsons invited us for dinner Saturday," she would announce. "I told them we'd be delighted to come. Derek, you'll need to pick up some wine. Something nice, not that bottle you brought last time." "We already have plans Saturday," I would protest. "Oh, what plans?" she would ask with feigned innocence. And this was the trap. Because our plans weren't big plans. We had planned to stay home and watch movies or maybe work in the garden, or just enjoy the kind of quiet Saturday that married couples need to reconnect with each other. But in Constance's world, these weren't real plans. They were just empty time that could be filled with more important activities. The kind of activities that reflected well on Derek and, by extension, on her parenting. "We can watch movies anytime," Derek would say, and I would feel another small piece of our marriage crumble away. By week 6, I realized that Constance wasn't just reorganizing our home. She was systematically undermining my position in it. Every suggestion she made, every task she took over, every casual comment about Derek's needs was designed to highlight my shortcomings as a wife. And the most insidious part was that she was doing it all under the guise of being helpful. "I noticed Derek's been looking tired lately," she would say. "Maybe he needs more iron in his diet. I could make that steak dish he used to love as a child. Derek mentioned he's been having trouble with his back," she would observe. His mattress might be too soft. I could research some better options. Derek seems stressed about that project at work, she would note. Maybe he needs a quiet space to decompress when he gets home. I could set up a little office area in the guest room. Every conversation was about Derek's needs, Derek's comfort, Derek's happiness. And the subtext was always the same. I wasn't meeting those needs adequately. The worst part was that Derek was starting to believe it. My mom has a point about the mattress, he said one evening. My back has been bothering me. Maybe we should try that meal planning thing, he suggested another night. It might be good for both of us to eat more structured meals. I think I will take her up on that office space idea, he mentioned casually. It would be nice to have somewhere quiet to work on weekends. Each concession felt like a betrayal. Not because Derek was agreeing with his mother, but because he wasn't even consulting me anymore. Decisions about our life, our home, our routine were being made in conversations I wasn't part of, and I was expected to simply go along with them. Week 7 was when I discovered that Constance had been going through our mail. I came home to find her sitting at the kitchen table with a stack of opened envelopes in front of her, a legal pad covered in her precise handwriting beside them. I took the liberty of organizing your bills, she said without looking up. Your system is quite chaotic. You're paying late fees on several accounts that could easily be avoided with better organization. I stared at the opened envelopes, recognizing our electric bill, our credit card statements, even a letter from my gynecologist's office. You opened our mail, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I was trying to help, she said, finally looking up with that innocent expression she had perfected. Derek mentioned that you sometimes forget to pay bills on time, and I thought I could set up a better system for you. Derek said what? But I already knew. A few months ago, I had accidentally paid our water bill late because I had confused it with the quarterly bill from the previous address. It was a one-time mistake that resulted in a $15 late fee. I had mentioned it to Derek in passing, laughing about my absent-mindedness. Now, that single incident had become evidence of my general incompetence with finances. You had no right to open our mail, I said, reaching for the envelopes. I'm just trying to help you be a better wife to my son, Constance said, and there it was. The truth she had been dancing around for 7 weeks. In her mind, I was failing as a wife, and it was her job to fix me. That night, I tried once more to talk to Derek. Your mother opened our mail today, I said, including personal medical correspondence. She was just trying to help with the bills, Derek said, not looking up from his laptop. You said yourself that you're not great with that stuff. I said I made one mistake. And now she thinks she has the right to go through our private mail. It's not that big a deal, Bree. It is a big deal. Derek, she's taking over our entire life. She's making decisions about our home, our schedule, our finances. She's treating me like I'm incompetent, and you're letting her. Derek finally looked up from his laptop, and I saw something in his expression that made my stomach drop. It was the same look he got when he was about to deliver bad news. Maybe, he said slowly, she's just pointing out some areas where we could improve. We. Or me. Derek didn't answer, but he didn't need to. His silence was answer enough. Week 8 was when I realized that if I didn't take drastic action, I was going to lose my marriage. I had become a stranger in my own home. Constance had taken over not just the household management, but Derek's emotional landscape as well. She was the one he talked to about his day, the one who knew his preferences, the one who anticipated his needs. I had been relegated to the role of roommate, someone who contributed financially but whose presence was increasingly unnecessary. The final straw came on a Wednesday evening when I walked into the kitchen to find Derek and Constance huddled over his laptop, looking at apartment listings. What are you doing? Yes. We're looking for a place for Mom, Derek said without looking up. She's decided she likes Milwaukee and wants to stay. We're looking at apartments in the area. That's wonderful, I said, feeling a surge of hope for the first time in weeks. When is she planning to move out? Derek and Constance exchanged a look that made my blood run cold. Well, Derek said slowly. We were actually thinking it might make more sense for her to stay here. Here. Permanently. Just think about it, Constance said, her voice taking on that persuasive tone she used when she was about to suggest something outrageous. It would be so much more economical. I could help with the mortgage, and in exchange I could help manage the household. Derek works so hard, and you're so busy with your career. It would be perfect for everyone. I looked at Derek, waiting for him to laugh, to tell his mother that this was obviously insane. Instead, he was nodding thoughtfully. It could work, he said. We could convert the guest room into a proper bedroom for Mom, and she could help with some of the household expenses. It would actually save us money. And I could take care of all the cooking and cleaning, Constance added. Derek deserves to come home to a properly managed household. I stood there in the kitchen that no longer felt like mine, looking at my husband who was seriously considering turning our marriage into some sort of bizarre multi-generational commune, and I realized that I had reached my breaking point. No, I said. Both Derek and Constance looked up at me in surprise. No, I repeated louder this time. Absolutely not. Bree. Derek started. No, Derek. Let me be very clear about this. Your mother is not moving in permanently. She's been here for 8 weeks, and in that time, she has systematically taken over every aspect of our life together. She has criticized everything I do, undermined every decision I make, and treated me like an incompetent child in my own home. And worst of all, you've let her. That's not fair, Constance said, her voice taking on a hurt tone. I've only been trying to help. You've been trying to replace me, I said, turning to face her directly. You've been doing my job as Derek's wife, and you've been doing it deliberately. You reorganized our kitchen, redecorated our bedroom, opened our mail, screened our phone calls, and made social plans without consulting me. You've criticized my cooking, my cleaning, my financial management, and my ability to care for my own husband. And you've done all of it while pretending to be helpful. I think you're being a little dramatic, Derek said. Dramatic? I turned back to him, feeling 8 weeks of suppressed anger finally bubbling to the surface. Derek, your mother has been living with us for 2 months, and in that time, you haven't made a single decision without consulting her first. You choose what to wear based on her opinion. You eat what she cooks. You sleep on sheets she bought. You make social plans based on her preferences. When was the last time you asked me what I wanted for dinner? When was the last time you asked my opinion about anything? Derek opened his mouth to answer, then closed it again. I'll tell you when, I continued. It was before your mother got here. For 8 weeks, I've watched you gradually replace me with her, and I've watched you convince yourself that it was somehow my fault for not being good enough. That's not true, Derek protested, but his voice lacked conviction. Isn't it? Derek, look around this kitchen. Do you even remember what it looked like before your mother reorganized it? Do you remember what our evening routine used to be like? Do you remember what we used to talk about before every conversation became about your mother's opinions and suggestions? For the first time in weeks, Derek actually looked uncertain. Your mother has been here for 2 months, I said, my voice getting stronger with every word. 2 months that were supposed to be temporary. And instead of helping her get back on her feet, you've been enabling her to take over our life. And now you want to make it permanent. It wouldn't be that bad, Derek said weakly. It would be the end of our marriage, I said simply. Because there's no room for a wife in a household that's being run by your mother. The kitchen fell silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. Constance sat frozen at the table, her perfectly manicured fingers gripping the edge of the laptop. Derek stood between us, looking like a man who was finally beginning to understand the magnitude of what he had allowed to happen. I think, I said quietly, that you need to choose. You can have a marriage with me, or you can have your mother running your life. But you can't have both. Brielle, that's not fair, Constance said, her voice taking on a sharp edge. I'm Derek's mother. I was here first. I'll always be in his life. And I'll always respect that, I replied, not taking my eyes off Derek. But you won't always be living in our home, making decisions about our marriage, and treating me like an intruder in my own life. That stops now. Derek looked back and forth between us, and I could see the moment when he finally understood what was happening. For 2 months, he had been so focused on avoiding conflict, on keeping both his mother and his wife happy, that he hadn't noticed that his mother was systematically destroying his marriage. "Mom," he said slowly, "I think Brielle has a point." Constance's face went through a series of expressions: surprise, hurt, anger, and finally calculation. "Derek, honey," she said, her voice taking on that manipulative sweetness again, "you know I only want what's best for you. And what's best for you is a wife who can properly take care of you. Brielle is obviously feeling insecure about her abilities as a homemaker, but instead of trying to improve herself, she's lashing out at me for trying to help." It was masterful, really. In 2 sentences, she had managed to paint me as the villain, herself as the victim, and Derek as the prize we were fighting over. But Derek, to his credit, was finally beginning to see through it. "Mom," he said, his voice firmer this time, "Brielle isn't insecure. She's angry. And she has every right to be." "Derek." "No, Mom. Let me finish." Derek looked at me, and for the first time in 2 months, I felt like he was really seeing me. "Brielle, I'm sorry. I got so caught up in trying to help my mom and avoid conflict that I didn't realize what was happening to us. You're right. My mom has been taking over, and I've been letting her. I've been treating you like your feelings don't matter, and that's not okay." I felt tears prick my eyes, but I blinked them back. This was too important for tears. "Mom," Derek continued, turning back to Constance, "you need to start looking for your own place. The temporary arrangement has gone on too long, and it's not fair to Brielle or to our marriage." "Derek, you can't be serious," Constance said, her composure finally cracking. "After everything I've done for this family. After all the improvements I've made to your life." "The improvements you made to Derek's life came at the expense of our marriage," I said. "And that was the point, wasn't it? You never intended this to be temporary. You've been working toward this moment since the day you arrived. The moment when Derek would choose you over me." Constance stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. "I don't have to listen to this," she said. "Derek, your wife is being completely unreasonable. I'm going to my room." "It's not your room," I called after her. "It's our guest room. And you're a guest who has overstayed her welcome." After she left, Derek and I stood in the kitchen, looking at each other across the wreckage of 2 months of manipulation and conflict avoidance. "How did we get here?" Derek asked quietly. "You chose your mother's comfort over our marriage," I said. "Every time there was a conflict, you sided with her. Every time I tried to set a boundary, you told me I was being unreasonable. You let her take over our home and our life, and you convinced yourself that it was somehow my fault for not being grateful enough." Derek sat down heavily at the table, putting his head in his hands. "I thought I was helping everyone. I thought if I just kept the peace, everything would work out. There's no keeping the peace when one person is actively undermining another," I said. "Your mother didn't come here to get back on her feet. She came here to prove that I'm not good enough for you. And for a while there, it was working." Derek looked up at me. "It wasn't working. I never thought you weren't good enough. Then why did you let her replace me in every way that mattered?" Derek was quiet for a long moment. I guess part of me liked being taken care of again. It reminded me of being a kid, when everything was simple and my mom handled all the complicated stuff. "But you're not a kid anymore," I said. "You're a married man. And taking care of complicated stuff together is what marriage is about." "You're right," Derek said. "And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Brielle. I almost lost the best thing that ever happened to me because I was too much of a coward to stand up to my mother." The next morning, Derek had a conversation with Constance about her moving out. I wasn't present for that discussion, but I could hear the raised voices through the thin walls of our home. By the time I got home from work, she was packing. "This isn't over," she said to me as she folded her designer clothes into her suitcases. "Derek will realize what a mistake he's making." "Maybe," I said. "But it will be his mistake to make. That's what marriage is. making mistakes together and figuring out how to fix them, without interference from well-meaning relatives. She left the next day, taking her expensive luggage and her opinions about our housekeeping with her. Derek drove her to the airport, and when he came home, he found me in the kitchen, making dinner with my cheap wooden spoons and store-bought marinara sauce. "How are you feeling?" he asked. "Like I can breathe again," I said honestly. That was 6 months ago. Constance did find an apartment in Milwaukee, and we see her for dinner once a month. Always in a restaurant, never in our home. She's still critical of my cooking and my housekeeping, but now her criticisms stay in the restaurant where they belong. Derek and I have been working on rebuilding the trust that was damaged during those 2 months. We've been to counseling, we've had a lot of difficult conversations, and we've established some very clear boundaries about family involvement in our marriage. Most importantly, Derek has learned that keeping the peace isn't the same thing as maintaining harmony. Real harmony in a marriage requires both partners to prioritize their relationship over the comfort of everyone else, even well-meaning mothers who just want to help. Our bedroom has blue sheets again. Our kitchen is organized the way I like it. Our evening routine belongs to us. And when people ask us for advice about dealing with difficult in-laws, I tell them what I learned during those 8 weeks of psychological warfare. Your marriage is worth fighting for. But sometimes, the battle isn't with outside forces. It's with the part of your partner that would rather avoid conflict than protect what you've built together. And until that battle is won, no amount of boundary setting or confrontation will save your relationship. The woman who gave birth to your spouse will always be their mother. But she doesn't get to be the third person in your marriage. That's a boundary worth defending, even if it means risking everything to draw that line in the sand. And sometimes, especially with mothers-in-law who specialize in subtle manipulation, the only way to save your marriage is to be willing to lose it. Because until your partner understands that they really could lose you, that their conflict avoidance has real consequences, they'll keep choosing the path of least resistance, even if it leads directly away from the life you're trying to build together. 6 months later, our marriage is stronger than it was before Constance moved in. Not because we survived her invasion, but because Derek finally learned to choose us over everyone else, including his mother, especially his mother. And that's a lesson that was worth fighting for, even when the battlefield was our own home and the enemy was wearing the face of family. I want to take a moment to thank you all for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you are interested in more of these contents, please like the video and hit the subscribe button. Thank you.